What's going on, guys? This is episode 13 of Dispersing the Cloud. Let me try to get the camera settled here. I am crashing my dad's office right now to find a little space before I got to take off for a wedding. I was visiting with my nephew, Rakito. He was in town this week visiting my folks, so I cruised by to hang out with him. Recap of my week. We were booking... and we have another church in Stockton, so we'll be visiting Stockton on the tour, and then Fresno possibly booked as well. And we'll probably visit a couple churches in each city, but for now we have 2 new churches locked down this last week. All of the Josh and the Sock Army books are printed. We are just now waiting on delivery, so we're looking at maybe 2 weeks for delivery tops. If it takes any longer than that, I could die of old age waiting for these books. Friday, we had studio time. I was finishing up some harmonies and got Kirsten and Jess back in there. If you guys are following me on Snapchat and Instagram, you saw a little bit of that story. We had Awaken Worship in the studio putting down another sample track for their EP. So that's getting closer and closer. We probably have maybe another 2 days in the studio, maybe 30, 40 more hours of mixing before we're ready to release the EP. I know it keeps getting pushed back, but we're still shooting for mid-April. And then I'm playing at Vinewood this next week, so we had rehearsal at Vinewood. It was nice to get back to Vinewood and hang out with some of those guys and play some music with them. That was good stuff. Process this week for me was, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this in the book that we're covering this week, but my big process was making choices that benefit your project or your business rather than making choices that benefit you. It's really easy for me to want to react to situations like I would react as an individual and not reacting as someone who's trying to produce a project or trying to get something done. You get offended by people you work with, and the normal reaction for you is to react as an individual. And I think if you want to have great projects, you cannot react like an individual. You have to first react in the benefit of your project. And in doing that, you actually put your projects before yourselves and your own wants and your own needs. And it ends up making a better project. And it ends up making you a better person in the long run, too. So I had a great opportunity to do that. I always have opportunities to do that just because I got so many different projects going on, and roadblocks come up, and you want to react like an individual. And it's tough sometimes to suck up your own pride and say, no, I'm going to act like just somebody who works for this company as if it's not my baby. And yeah, we'll talk about that more when we hit the book. Jump right into it. Book of the week was Good to Great by Jim Collins. He has another book called Built to Last that talks about companies that are built with staying power, good companies. This particular book focused on good companies that became great companies, and they quantified that. They had this list of criteria that you had to meet to be a great company. And one of the criteria was to have sustained growth that beat the market by more than 5 times, and sustained being 15 years or more. And so these are companies that are really destroying their competition for long periods of time. And they looked at similarities between each company and how to replicate that in your own company. So one of the things that I initially realized is some of these companies, and because they put a marker of 15 years on them, some of the companies have gone bankrupt. Circuit City went bankrupt already. There was another one on there that I hadn't heard of. But some are still around, like G&E, and then Hewitt-Packard. These are companies that have really stood above and beyond their competitors and crushed it. I was kind of disconcerted that not J.P. Morgan was on there. Wells Fargo was on there, and we know just a few years ago, Wells Fargo took a big hit for like malpractice and screwing their clients. So that was kind of like, man, like that sucks. But this book was written before that. Then the other one was, I think Philip Morris, the cigarette company, was on there. Not Philip Morris isn't a cigarette. It was a big cigarette company. I can't think of him. I'm sure maybe it is Philip Morris. If someone's watching, look that up. Who's the largest cigarette company right now? Because they're still kicking butt. And I was kind of like, dude, a cigarette company, like they're taking advantage of people. Like you're really gonna put them in the good to great category. But again, they didn't look at what products they were making. They literally looked at what companies were taking off and why they were taking off. One of the things that they said was these companies have a list of guidelines and rules that they go by, principles that they live by and they swear by, and that their employees adopt and take on. And I found that even the writer of the book, Jim Collins, was like, man, it really sucks that, I think it is Philip Morris. I'm just going to keep saying Philip Morris, and if I'm wrong, I'll correct it later on the comments below. He said, man, it's crazy that the cigarette company is in here because I feel uneasy about that, but I have to be unbiased because this is the criteria that we set, and these are the 11 companies that we found, and they all did stellar during their particular 15-year runs. Besides the fact that there are a couple questionable companies in there morally, the book was really insightful. One of the big things that I saw that each company had was each company had a level 5 leader at the time of their 15-year run. Now, they didn't give credit to the statement or to the quote level 5 leader to John Maxwell. And I don't know if it's because they're just assuming that everyone knows John Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership, or if they're trying to say that they're coming up with this new type of 5-level leader. But anyone who knows, like who's been watching the podcast and knows me, I love John Maxwell, and that's definitely one of his things, 5 levels of leadership. So if you haven't read that book, check that out. Their definition of a 5-level leader, these leaders all had some things in common, and one of them was that they were not outspoken and charismatic. Not to say that you can't be outspoken and charismatic to be a level 5 leader, but these people more often than not were looking to outside sources to build other people up and not themselves. So they asked Hewlett and Packard what they gave a big speech about their run, and they were like, we just got lucky. We just got lucky. Yeah, you got lucky for 15 years. And they said, we're lucky we didn't mess it up. We're lucky we did a good job of not messing it up. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then they said this quote, to be a 5-level leader, a level 5 leader, you need to look out the window and look for other reasons of why you're successful. Instead of telling everybody that you're successful because of you. And vice versa, when trials come up and when hardship comes up, you need to look in the mirror and blame yourself and not look out the window to outside sources and say, well, it was the economy. Well, it was this. I mean, that's back to Grant Cardone. You are in control of you. No one else is in control of you. So if something goes wrong, it's definitely your fault. If something goes right, it's luck. Right? So that was pretty impressive that each one of these companies had a leader that really didn't take any credit for themselves. And they even highlighted other leaders that did do really well for short periods of time, like 5 years, and then those leaders were taking credit for themselves, but then when it didn't work out, they'd push it back on, well, it was this, it was that, it was our staff, it was our employees, we don't have the right people, yada, yada, yada. So level 5 leader, all of the 11 companies had that in common. And then one of the other things that they found is that it's not the people that are important, it's the right people that are important. So the first thing they had to do, each one of these companies, was to get the right people on the bus. And then once the right people were on the bus, it didn't matter where the bus was going, because those people were on the bus because the other people were on the bus. If you get the wrong people on the bus, it ends up like this. Hey, we're going to go be a company that invests in real estate. Great, I'm on the bus because I love real estate, right? And then we're going towards real estate, and then we find out, you know what, it looks like real estate's not going to be a great avenue for us, so we're going to take a right-handed turn, and we're going to go over here, and we're going to look at mortgages instead. It's still in the real estate business, but we're just going to do mortgages. Well, the people who were on the bus, they were only on the bus because they wanted the money at the end of real estate. They didn't really believe in the bus and the journey and the people who were on it. So now you got the wrong people on the bus going to a different location. I thought that was pretty insightful. Let's see what else we got here. This was I'm going to save that story for last. One of the other stories was a hedgehog story, fox and a hedgehog, right? And so you got this crafty fox who has all these different devices and ways to catch its prey, the hedgehog. Then you have the hedgehog who literally only has one line of defense, right? He rolls up like a little ball and he's got spikes all over him. And so the fox is coming up with a million different ways to attack the hedgehog, and the hedgehog just stays very, very simple. He already knows his plan. He sees the fox, he just rolls up, and he's like, this fox is never going to learn. I got this simple plan, it works every time. He talked about these companies having a hedgehog concept, and he used the example of Walgreens. Walgreens said that they were going to... Walgreens used to be a grocery store chain, I believe, and it switched over to like a drugstore, all-purpose store, because they saw a trend in the market and they just went with it. But their hedgehog concept was that they were going to focus on convenient stores that were accessible, right? That everybody could either walk to or get to quickly. So that was a requirement for them. And then they were going to focus on visit or price per visit, meaning literally it didn't matter what they were going to do, but as long as the person came in and they focused on price per visit, meaning they're spending more dollars per visit, then they'd be successful. And those were the very small things that they were going to focus on, and they didn't leave those things or didn't abandon that concept. And so the book kind of challenges you to get your own hedgehog concept. Like, what are the things that you are going to focus on, and just focus on those things and everything else will fall into place. The last story that I'll tell from the book was a story of, what's this guy's name? Admiral Jim Stockdale. This is an amazing story. The quote is, "The optimists won't make it out alive." So this guy was an admiral in the Navy, and he was captured in Vietnam. He was tortured the most out of any other prisoner in Vietnam, right? And he lived through it. He lived to tell about it and come back out. He has the Medal of Honor. He also is the only person in the military ever to have aviator wings and the Medal of Honor, which was kind of cool as well. So they asked him, how come you made it out alive, right? And he escaped like multiple times. He said that he made it out alive because he wasn't. He faced the hardest. Let me quote it correctly. "You must have the ability to face the most brutal facts of your reality. We are not getting out by Christmas." And he said the people who didn't make it out alive were the optimists. The people who were saying, "Oh, we'll be out by Christmas." Christmas came and went. "Oh, we'll be out by Thanksgiving." Thanksgiving came and went. And then Christmas was here again. And then Thanksgiving. Those people were crushed by their optimism. And it's not to say not to be optimistic, but it is to say to be realistic in your business of saying, I'm going to face the most brutal facts about my business. One of the things that I face is I'm not going to be rich and famous tomorrow, right? And that's not necessarily the goal. The goal is to be able to play music full time, which I'm doing, and I'm doing the goal. That's my hedgehog. As long as I can play music full time and do my art and pay all my bills, right now that's my hedgehog. I'm a pretty happy guy. But if I'm gonna build Fragoza Media and Entertainment, we're not gonna be out by Christmas. We're not gonna be done by Christmas. It's not gonna happen overnight. the brutal facts is short on cash, short on time because I got so many projects, right? It's going to take a while. That's a brutal fact. And I'm going to be doing a lot of the work. And because I'm doing a lot of the work because I can't afford a full-time employee, it's going to take even longer until I can. But as long as I'm okay facing those facts, I think I'm going to be okay. Book was great. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Let's go 4.5 out of 5. I think there's a lot of valuable stuff in there for people who are looking to build up their own companies, looking to build up their own personal selves. A lot of good stuff in it. My next book is going to be The Kingdom Man by Tony Evans. I already started reading it. I like it so far. We'll see how it goes. And I'll try to fit another book in there. This one's only about 6 hours. I got a late start on Good to Great, but I got a pretty early start on Kingdom Man. And this is obviously a spiritual book. We will hit up, I don't know. I'll see if I can find another book before next week. And coming up next week, so today I'm leaving in like 10 minutes to go to another wedding, which is awesome. It just means I'm working. We have 2 shoot days with Dwyer Productions for 5th and 3rd Bank. So we got outsourced for a couple more commercials on Monday and Tuesday. More booking to do, obviously, for the tour. It's my brother's birthday on the 5th, and my sister-in-law's birthday on, I think it's on the 6th or the 7th. She's not going to watch this. She didn't like me, so I don't know when your birthday is. Deal with it, Angela. What are you going to do about it? Nothing. And then our word of inspiration comes from The Alchemist. Do not ignore the omens. This was a cool story that I wanted to share. So I got involved with a group on once a month, Sundays. We're doing this project where a bunch of local musicians and worship leaders like myself got together, and we kind of formed this band of we're just jamming together, right? And we're doing it on Sunday nights. And so I went out to it, we jammed, and it just felt right. It was one of those things where like, man, I'm definitely supposed to be here, right? Fast forward to like 2 or 3 days later, I had a meeting set up with the team that I'm climbing Mount Shasta with. And it was like 6 a.m. in the morning. I pulled up to our breakfast. We were going to meet, and the guy who spoke, and I'm brain farting on his name right now. I think his name's Jim. He spoke at this little gathering that we had of worship leaders. And again, like I told you, it just felt right. It's like, man, this is something God wants me to do. He also showed up at the Mount Shasta thing, and he's the one leading my Mount Shasta trip. And I was supposed to find that out that day of like who all was going on the trip and everything. And it was a nice omen, if you will, a nice reminder of I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. One of the great things I liked about that book, The Alchemist, is one, it tugs at your heart with the idea that you're supposed to have an epic story. And you're supposed to be doing something that is beyond you, right? Your own personal legend, it refers to. And one of the things it said in the book, and it kept reminding you, don't ignore the omens. Those things in your life that seem like happenstance, that seem like chance, they're not chance. And not everybody can notice those omens, but when you see an omen like that, when you see things that are too big of a coincidence to ignore, don't ignore them. Run with them. So that's all I got for you guys. I'm going to head to a wedding. Obviously, they're cleaning the church right now. I'm going to head to the wedding. I will see you guys next week with a review of Kingdom Man. Later.